Hello, everyone. We are excited to be here for the first Ghost Education 101 presentation of the new year. I'm happy to have Philip joining me, so I'm not doing this alone today.
Glad to be with you.
Thank you.
2023, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, yes, exactly. But before we get started, just a real quick, for those of you who have never seen us before, it's Ghost Education 101. I'm Heather Lee, and I'm joined by Philip. And we basically do presentations to kind of help you guys get the information you need, the training you need to be a paranormal researcher, or if you're just interested in ghosts and spooky things, we're here for that too. So feel free to ask any questions you have during today's presentation. And Philip, do you have anything you want to say before we get started?
Now, I will be monitoring the chat in case anyone does have questions. I can write them down. We can ask at the end or however you would like to do it. We'll just see how it goes. If people want to know something right away, I'll just go ahead and say, I got a question.
No problem. And if we get a lot of questions, we can break it down by slide, because today's presentation is going to be on haunted Southern Nevada ghost towns. I put this together for TMCC, which was a college that I taught at last year. And it's based on my book that came out. And this covers all the ghost towns, basically from Belmont South in Nevada. So we're going to work on that presentation. Let me get that up for you. There we go. Okay. And like Philip said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask throughout the show. Feel free to share. And we will have additional time at the end, hopefully. I know this presentation was originally 4 hours long, but I can speed through it as fast as I can to make it not quite. If not, we'll break it into 2 shows.
Yeah, I'll have to go to a little boys' room if it's that long somewhere.
No, we'll keep it at 2 hours today, but you know,
Okay.
make sure I stop in time. And if I have to, I'll come back and do it again later this season. So let me get to my screen so I can. Okay, so basically, this presentation is going to cover all the different ghost towns in Southern Nevada, known as the Silver State because of all the silver that has been found there. Basically, the whole state boomed in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries. And then suddenly all the mines closed because residents no longer needed to mine. War broke out and they needed to put their efforts elsewhere. And each town had its own reason for no longer being a thriving town in the Southern Nevada area. With the mines closing and everybody packing up and leaving, spirits that are there kind of had freedom to do what they wanted and linger. And they definitely, in these towns, I've experienced it, they definitely like to make their presence known. There's a lot of jokesters I've found in these, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of sadness, and just a lot of things happen in these towns. And I refer to ghost towns as the Walt Disney World for paranormal researchers because there is so much there that, you know, I walk into a ghost town and I, you know, light up, you know, grin from ear to ear. So it's kind of some of my favorite places to go and explore. So what makes a ghost town? A majority of ghost towns, like I'd mentioned, are in complete ruin. And that's because everybody had left. And it makes a ghost town because it was once a town that was thriving. And then just in a matter of almost like a blink of an eye, it feels like the town is desolate. I categorize ghost towns in 3 different categories. You have completely abandoned, which would be like Rhyolite, or in the photo in the bottom, that's St. Thomas, which we'll talk about later. Working ghost towns such as Goldfield, Tonopah. Belmont's another one that's completely abandoned, and then on the brink of being a ghost town, and that one is Boulder City. I included that only because I also included Boulder City in the book because Boulder City is an amazing town, and even though it's not a ghost town, it is a ghost town compared to what it was during the building of the Hoover Dam. So there's a ton of paranormal activity there. My favorite place is the Pet Cemetery, which we'll talk about later as well. So essentially, whether it was economic loss, drought, flooding, war, or other natural disasters, these ghost towns, the purpose just no longer existed, so people moved on. Okay, here's a list of popular ghost towns. In Nevada, you have the ones that are near Nevada. The ones I think I have in this presentation is Rhyolite, Nelson, Belmont, Gold Point, Goodsprings, Goldfield, St. Thomas. I actually have Belmont listed twice. I just noticed that. And the other ones are not in the southern area, so those are more north, but those all have haunted stories as well if you wanted to research those. And the photo there is actually one that we took in, oh yeah, Philip, there's like over 500 ghost towns in Nevada.
I had no idea there were that many.
Yeah, and I'm actually doing a book, Florida ghost towns, and there's like over 300 in Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, hurry up with that book because I want to
I
know
know.
about that.
It's amazing how many are out there. But Nevada is believed to be one of the states that has the most ghost towns in the country. But that photo there is of of the bar in Gold Point where we did an investigation at. Before going in, we had heard voices while we were standing outside, but we couldn't confirm if it was the radio or if we were actually hearing voices. Because once we got in there, there was a radio playing very softly in the background. But, you know, you would think you wouldn't be able to hear it through the walls, but you never know. So we weren't able to confirm if those were actual voices or not. Okay, why are there so many ghost towns in Nevada? Actually, there's more than 600. And they were former mining camps in Nevada. Basically what it was is when everybody was moving west, there was so much undiscovered land throughout the state that people, you know, set up camp and newcomers just flocked to the state. Suddenly, again, the town didn't serve its purpose. Residents left in high numbers. A lot of times when people left, they left all their belongings. They just packed up with what they could carry on their back, on their horse, or in their wagon. Extreme loss of jobs. The government shut down mining operations to be able to pull workers to fight in the war. And basically no more gold, silver, or anything like that means no more jobs. So why, you know, once people started leaving, the shop owners, saloon owners, they ended up packing up and leaving as well. And the photo here, even though it's not from a ghost town, that is at the McCaw School of Mines, a place that you guys probably heard me talk about a lot. The front yellow car, the museum actually teaches kids about mining throughout all of Nevada. So that was one of my favorite places to go, and it's very haunted. But that front mining car I always thought was interesting because it was from Area 51. And we had activity all around the yellow car in the front, but once you got to that white car in the back, the activity stopped. So it kind of makes you wonder if that train car brought something with it from Area 51. So. Okay. Why? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I turned off my Facebook. Tell Stephanie not to message me. I'm live. No, I'm just kidding. Why are ghost towns haunted? Southern Nevada ghost towns basically had a high level of energy. If you think about it, the Wild West mentality, endless fights, accidents, diseases. Then also you have the artifacts, antiques that remain behind. Sudden deaths and accidents happened. I mean, if you think about it, mines collapsed, causing deaths, explosions, a whole bunch of different things. And residents just love their hometown. You know, whether they stayed or they left afterwards, you know, they might have gone back in spirit and just kind of stayed there. And then also you have the possibility of self-manifestation because we've passed all these stories along saying this place is haunted by, you know, X, Y, and Z. Eventually over time, once that story gets told over and over, it's possibly that we could be self-manifesting the actual hauntings happening at the locations. And that photo is in front of the bar that I showed you earlier, the saloon earlier. And that's my son and I on the set of Real Haunts Ghost Towns. So he was excited pointing out all the different things while we were filming. So, and we had a lot of activity in Gold Point as well.
Tell people where they can see that. Was it on Tubi? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, it's on Tubi, Roku, and it's on Amazon now. And then Real Haunts 3 is coming out on Amazon. They said sometime this year. They keep pushing the date on that one back.
And say the name again.
Real Haunts Ghost Towns, and then Real Haunts 3.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, are all ghost towns haunted? My answer would be yes and no. Not all ghost towns have reports of paranormal activity in Southern Nevada, but that could be for several reasons. The residents are just too busy. They don't notice what's going on. People don't want to report that they've seen a ghost for fear of being thought to be crazy. And basically they just, you know, like I said, they just don't notice. And then you also have some towns like Belmont. And I want to say, I can't remember, Berlin, I think it was, they're too hard to get to. So you really don't have that many visitors to notice that there is activity in the town. And that photo is something we'll talk about later. It's in Rhyolite at the I think it's the Goldwell Open Air Museum. And that is a really haunted outdoor art installation. Okay, so before we get started, I think this is the last one before I hit the towns. Tommy knockers. I'm not sure. A lot of people have probably heard of Tommy knockers. They're similar to the gremlins that you get in airplanes and mechanical stuff. But basically, they haunted the mines throughout Nevada and throughout the world. People have talked about Cornish equivalent is it's basically an Irish leprechaun called the English brownie, and they're gnome-like creatures that haunt the mines. Germans called them Bergeisters, which means mountain ghost or little miners. And these, a lot of people say once you hear the knock of the Tommy knocker knocking, you need to get out of the mine. So it could be the Tommy knocker was warning you to get out of the mine. These creatures or these entities have also been blamed for causing mischief in the mine, such as tools missing, lunches missing. But then some people think that the knocking is from the mine actually creaking and getting ready to collapse. So, they've these poor Tommy knockers have been blamed for things, but they've also been very well welcomed, in the mines.
Question. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that Tommy knockers are a form of elementals that are protecting the land? Has anyone...
That's part of the theory too. So you have the elementals as well. And then I know one theory, I want to say it was, I can't remember which one it was, but there was, the Tommy knockers they didn't haunt on Sundays or Jewish holidays, which also made it believe that it was a self-manifestation as well.
Yeah. Wasn't that a Stephen King movie, Tommy Knockers?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't see it, but okay.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a whole bunch. I mean, if you just Google Tommy knockers, tons and tons of information. I mean, it's almost near. I could write a book on just that.
You'll probably put that on your list.
Right. But the photo here I took at McCaw School of Mines. If you look, there's three men in the I'm pointing at it like you guys can see me pointing at it. There's three guys in the front, and then you can see a fourth in the back. And that is believed to be a photo of a Tommy knocker caught on film in a mine back in the day. And I've actually looked at this photo several different ways. I've enlarged, I mean, granted, I don't have the original, but I've enlarged it to make sure to see if it was a reflection or a double exposure. And from what I can see, it doesn't look like it. And I've had a lot of other people look at it too, and they do believe that that is a photo of a Tommy knocker in the background. And this would have been taken before digital. So I'd love to get my hands on the original. Okay, so Betty, Bullfrog, and Rhyolite. These are three towns that are all kind of lumped together. Betty is a fully working ghost town. They have actually one of the most beautiful and best gas stations and rest stops I've ever seen. It's on the way from Vegas to Goldfield, so we always stop there. Betty is home to a haunted brothel and several other haunted locations. Then you have Bullfrog, which was the mine, and that is very haunted as well. It was known as the Bullfrog Mining District, which shut down in 1920. And then at the top, you see those little ghostly figures. That is a replica of the Last Supper at the Goldwell Open Air Museum. And that place they have, I think it was like a 42-foot woman, a penguin with the miner guy who was believed to have founded the town. And that story came from, he was on a drunken binge, and while he was drunk, he came back and he swore to everybody that the penguin showed him where the gold was. So, but everybody's like, oh, you were just dreaming. But he, swore up and down that the penguin showed him where the gold was. And it's just a very interesting town. Rhyolite, completely desolate. Nobody lives there. There's not even any power there anymore. It was brought back to life by Paramount Pictures to film some movies. The photo that I'll show you later, I know, was in The Island with Ewan McGregor, and a whole bunch of other areas in that town have been used to film different movies. The one photo of the house, that house is a glass bottle house. the person who made it spent all of his time at the bar and at the drugstore collecting empty liquor bottles, wine bottles, beer bottles, and medicine bottles. And he used all of those to build his home. And that is believed to be haunted by the guy who built it. And I cannot remember his name at the time.
I just saw Rhyolite is a crystal. I wonder if they found Rhyolite there.
I don't know. I never looked in to see what they found.
It says volcanic rock rich in silicone with a texture that can be glossy like glass. Interesting.
Yep, I'll have to. That's another thing we'll need to look into, because I know one theory that the news station when we lived in Vegas said that Vegas Valley, if you stand and look, it has like a ridge around it, so it almost looks like a circle. And one of the theories is because there's a lot of volcanic rock there, is that the Las Vegas Valley was actually the inside of a dead volcano.
Oh, that's very possible.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, so that could be possible, you know. And okay, so that's the building I told you about when Ewan McGregor and what's her name? Oh my God, I'm like drawing a blank. They escaped and they hid in that building for a little while. And that whole escape scene from the island was there. And yeah, Kelly, it is a big conductor of energy. And I'm like, completely lost my train of thought. It's been one of those days. But people have seen apparitions throughout the dodging in between buildings, especially in that one. That building is the bank building that was there. You can hear voices throughout the street. If you go into the mines, you can hear voices echoing. And all these decaying structures just kind of add a creepy sense to being in Rhyolite. Paranormal activity is found at the Goldwell Open Air Museum, including figures at that Last Supper display. People will see ghostly figures dashing in and out. There is a brown man who roams the streets, and the story behind him is it's believed that he's sometimes brown. Some people say he's like a greenish black color too, but it's not quite a shadow figure because they can see features, but he's seen walking with his donkey through town. And it's believed that he was a miner who, or a prospector who struck it big, told the barber when he was getting his haircut and his beard trimmed what he had found. And it's believed that the barber had slit his throat while he was getting his haircut just to get the gold that he had just discovered. And it's believed that this brown man still wanders the street today trying to find his killer. One thing I found interesting that I saw it like a couple times when I was doing research, but then all of a sudden it disappeared off of Google. Hopefully I can find it again. But there on Google Earth, there was a photo that showed two figures with glowing eyes looking up through a sewer sluice grate.
Oh, geez.
And it was one of those that these could have been paranormal, or they could have been an animal reflecting the moonlight in their eyes. But it was just very creepy to see, you know, two pairs of red eyes glowing from the sewer.
And you'll recognize the brown man because he has a really bad haircut.
Yeah. The barber didn't finish.
Couldn't help it since that's what I do for a living.
I know. I need to come up and see you. I need a haircut bad.
I won't slit your throat. Unless you know what a goal is.
Belmont. Belmont's actually a cute little town. It's difficult to get to because it's way out of the way in the middle of nowhere. At one time, it was the second largest city in the state. It had more than 15,000 residents. There's not a lot of paranormal claims, but some people have claimed to have heard strange voices and seeing shadow figures. But what makes this interesting, it's one of the most well-preserved ghost towns. It has many of the original buildings still standing. There's a 100-foot chimney that was used by 1940 pilots from the nearby Tonopah Air Force Base, and they used it for target practice during the war. Also, there's a big legend behind you guys have, I'm sure, have heard of the Manson family. They have connection to this area. It is believed that they hid out in Belmont after the murders that they conducted in California. And if you look at the one photo on the left, it says Charlie Manson with the date. And even though there's no confirmation as to whether or not he wrote on there, it just adds to the story that Miss Rose, she dubbed herself the town's Oh, hi, Aurora. She dubbed herself the town's, I guess, overseer. She, protected the town. And she had two rules: don't take anything from the town, and there was no camping allowed within the city limits. During one day, she saw, the three girls walking up to her, and they had asked her where they could camp. She told them their rules. They said, thank you. And they went camping. And then the next day they came back and thanked her for giving them such a great location to camp and that they were going to be on their way. So they were very polite and very nice to Miss Rose. But then when Miss Rose was off visiting her sister, she saw the newspaper on the table with the mugshots of the three ladies and Charles Manson. And she realized that those three ladies were the three people that she told to go camp elsewhere. So she basically, stood up to the Manson family and told them to get out of town almost, but in a polite way.
And live to tell about it.
Exactly. Boulder City, home to the Hoover Dam. It's also home to the Boulder Dam Hotel. The Hoover Dam, I'm going to talk about in a little bit, has a ton of paranormal activity. The Boulder Dam Hotel additionally has a bunch of activity. The railroad tunnels. It was basically, I think I have a photo in here, but the tunnels were used to transport materials from Las Vegas to the dam. They are now still standing, but they've removed all the tracks. And even though nobody had died there, in recent research, I had found that there was a body that they believe was dumped there in the 80s because they found a skeleton in the tunnels at one time. But people hear eerie footsteps, sounds of men talking, and it's just really, it's eerie, but it's so much fun to explore because you go through one tunnel, then you have an open space and you can see Lake Mead. Then you go through, there's a series of 5 tunnels that you can go through, and it's a great place to go. The Boulder Dam Hotel, as I mentioned, it's a historic colonial construction. Howard Hughes had stayed there during his recovery in 1943 after his plane crashed into Lake Mead. People have reports of having their ankles grabbed by unseen hands while they're in the lobby. Several rooms have been reported to have been haunted. Workers claim that they hear water running in the banquet room, and when they go into the banquet room, there's no water running. A former employee is believed to still work there, Tommy Thompson. He was a bellboy in the early 1900s. People see full-bodied apparition, but not realizing it's a ghost, carrying luggage into the elevator with people getting in the elevator with him. And by the time they get to their floor, he's no longer in the elevator with them. So he just disappears somewhere between the first floor and whatever floor they're getting off at. So very interesting stories at that hotel. Okay, Pet Cemetery, one of my favorite places to explore, except for they don't let you get in there anymore, so you can only go around the outer rim. But it's home to many beloved pets. It was never a legal burial ground for pets, but people just started doing it. It's the final resting place of Rin Tin Tin's son, Flash. You can see his gravestone there. You have everything from, beautiful gravestones like that to just handwritten on rocks, handwritten on wood. Very different, a whole bunch of things. It's also believed to be a popular dumping place for the mob because it's about 30 minutes outside of Las Vegas in the middle of nowhere. And it's even very hard to find unless you know what you're looking for. Paranormal claims include strange noises, feelings of being touched, seeing full body apparitions of both people and pets, and shadow figures. The most popular haunting at this location is the white cat. People will have a white cat approach them, run in and out of their legs like cats do. And when they reach down to pet it, the cat's gone. And also people hear the bell of a cat, like a cat's wandering around near them. I already said that. Oh, and it's believed to be one of the most haunted pet cemeteries in the world.
Question. Mm-hmm. Like how old are these pet graves? Are these like, where are they, whose pets or where are they from? I mean, it looks like super old. I mean, who?
They date back to the early 1900s.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the earliest one was like 1905 or something like that. And there might even be earlier ones.
Wow.
But if you go to, I can share the website on our page, but a friend of mine, several of his photos are in my book. But he runs, I think it's called BoulderCityPetCemetery.com. Or I'll have to get the exact link, but he actually has a website where him and his friends went in and took photos of every single grave.
Oh, that's good.
They documented every grave that was there. But
Good.
it has been preserved. Granted, you can no longer dump your pets, but it has been preserved by the state to not be demolished.
Good.
So, okay, Hoover Dam. 70 stories tall, 600 feet wide. There have been 96 official deaths, even though unofficially they believe it's more than 150. And what's interesting, one of the theories that they have is a lot of people say that the men were buried in the concrete, that they fell in. Well, the Hoover Dam was not built on site, essentially. The blocks were built just off site, and they were blocks put together like, almost like Lego. So the theory of that is false from the research I've done. And also I've seen several scientific reports that say that if that had happened, the Hoover Dam wouldn't be secure or sturdy. So that, there would be air pockets and a whole bunch of other things that would make the dam collapse. So to me, I don't believe that one happened at all, but there are other reasons that the place is haunted. Several people have seen ghosts walking the hallways in clothing that would have been worn by the construction people. The Michael Callahan Pat Tillman Bridge, which is just the huge tall bridge that everyone sees looking over. You can see there was 100 suicides there. And one of the most popular hauntings and stories passed around is a taxi driver was driving across that bridge, and he saw a woman in white walking across. She went to the edge, and he stopped to pull over to help her because she looked in, distress, and jumped over before he could get to her. And when he ran to her, there was nobody there. So it's believed that it's the woman the spirit of the woman reliving her final days when she had jumped. Disembodied voices are heard throughout the dam. You can hear footsteps walking through, sounds of dripping water, flickering lights. Similar to the Tommyknockers, tools go missing, and just extreme drops in temperature. I've been inside the dam on one of their tours, and it's really weird. A really weird feeling when you're in there. I don't know if it's because you're inside the dam or, the noises from all the generators and all of that, but it's just a really weird feeling. It's known as one of the most haunted locations in southern Nevada because of all the activity. Lake Mead, which is off the Colorado River, the man-made lake that was created, that has been the site of many plane crashes. And there's actually one plane that's still underwater that they use for scuba diving. And that's where Howard Hughes crashed his plane. There was another plane that had crashed. And actually, Howard Hughes's crash, 2 people died. And then the other plane crashed, nobody had died, but it was such a traumatic event that I'm sure that imprinted itself on the land and water as well. The Hoover Dam, actually, this is one thing that I found interesting and I'm researching more about. The Hoover Dam, they believe the structure is set up to look like the throne of Satan. And a lot of the sculptures and pictures and all that stuff are believed to be related to satanic rituals. So I'm looking more into that. There's actually a book that was written about it that I need to find the name for it again, because that's where I started my information from. And then my favorite story, it's sad but heartwarming. The photo there is the gravestone at the dam of the Hoover Dam mascot. It was a dog that there's several different stories. Someone said that a worker had found it. Some had said that the dog just wandered on property. But regardless of how the dog got there, he was beloved by all the workers. And it was said that if you antagonize the dog, hurt the dog, cause problems, you would have to talk to the foreman. He actually carried his own lunchbox. He walked on the catwalks. He actually walked on the catwalks better than some of the men did. He was fearless, didn't care how high he went or where he was going. At the end of the day, he got on the bus with everybody to go back to where they lived, and he lived with them. But then one day the dog was napping under a truck. The truck driver didn't look, backed up over the dog. It is believed people see a black dog running around the dam, and he is buried on site at the dam. Once you leave the parking garage, before you get to the visitor center, you see this plaque, and it's right there.
Heather's got a question. Is it common to have crashes at the dam of something? Is there an electrical
I'm not sure, but it could be, because if you look at all the photos, I mean, you have all those electrical wires and everything leaving. But yeah, it's, and every time there has been a crash, it's been on I mean, it's possible that it could be that. It could also be that it's always a new plane that they're testing out.
Mm.
So they're always doing test runs with the new plane. So it could
Oh.
be a combination of both things.
And Lake Mead, is that not the one that the drought just basically it dried up this summer? They found some bodies and a body in a barrel.
Yeah, I think they're up to 7 bodies now that they've found.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that could add to hauntings too. I mean, like our Lake Lanier in Georgia, it's had like 700, I don't know, 1,200 drownings since it's a man-made lake. We've had so many cases on Lake Lanier. It's like it makes you wonder.
Yeah, and in Lake Mead, it's interesting because it's all mob related. And of course, all those bodies started showing up after I finished my Las Vegas book with the mob. And I'm like, oh no.
God, that's funny.
But yeah, it's interesting out that way. But it was really low when we left, and for it to start revealing stuff like that, it's had to have gotten a lot lower.
Yeah.
So it's sad. It was beautiful out there. It's really beautiful. I loved going to the Hoover Dam and the Lake Mead area. Okay, El Dorado, Canyon, and Nelson. Now, before we go real quick, this photo, we're on the way, as you can see, of course, ghost towns. It's all dirt roads. So on our way there, we were driving. My husband was driving. My son was in the back seat. We were on our way to film again. And I saw a Roadrunner dart in front of the car. And it wasn't a little Roadrunner, but it wasn't Bugs Bunny Roadrunner either. And I was like, I thought my husband was going to hit it. So I braced, thinking he saw it, but he didn't see it. And when I turned around to look to see, if we hit it or not, it was nowhere to be found. And I would have seen it because it was everything behind us was open. So I would have seen it if it was running away or continued across the road. So in my opinion, it was a spirit of a roadrunner crossing the road. So, and if that's what he does and he likes to scare people that are driving, I want to catch that thing and teach it a lesson, because that gave me a heart attack.
Girl, send it to the light.
But El Dorado Canyon existed long before Vegas was developed. It's probably it was half hour from where we lived, and we lived about 20 minutes outside of Vegas, so less than an hour away. The area is very remote, as you can see, but it's filled with so many treasures. The Spanish settlers were the first to arrive in the area in 1775. The town was one of the first mining towns to actually strike gold and silver in the 1850s. And word spread about these treasures, and the mine just boomed in 1861. It quickly was one of the fastest growing towns in the area. And it was settled, this part I find interesting, it was settled both by Civil War deserters from the North and South. So the town actually ended up having its own civil war because the Northerners were fighting the Southerners all the way out in Nevada over who had rights to different areas. Then you also had prospectors and desperados who came to town. It was one of the most rowdiest towns in the area. Several people say that if you want to get rich, you had to pay for it with blood. The town was named Nelson after the leader, Charles Nelson, who was killed by a renegade Indian named Avodi, along with 4 others. And it was so far out of the way that the sheriff only went if there was a death. And even then, he never came to town because he was 2 hours away, or 2 to 3 hours away up in Tonopah. So it was this would be your Wild West town. Okay, the San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake Railroad went through Nelson in 1901 and 1905. They constructed across southern Nevada and ended near the steamboats in the region, because Nelson backs right up to the river. The town of Nelson became a stopping point on Highway 165 when people started driving. The area was overtaken by a flash flood in 1974 that quickly turned the town into a ghost town. It had already been starting to do it, but it quickly turned into a ghost town once that flood came through. So you can see that not all towns become ghost towns in the early 1900s or 1800s. They've actually occurred in the mid to late 1900s as well. And then, like I had mentioned, Civil War deserters from both sides escaped out that way. Okay, Nelson today. The one photo on the left, that is a picture of the set from 3,000 Miles to Graceland when they crashed the plane. Producers actually filmed, crashed the plane, and left the plane there. They didn't take any of the props with them. So that is not a real crashed plane. But it does add to the creepiness and the intrigue of the town. But as you can see, the town has old structures, and this town is owned by a cute little couple. They lived in Boulder City, found out Nelson was up for sale. They bought the whole town. And with that purchase, they've restored it. They now open it up. They also own the mine, so you can go, they do tours into the mine, and you can go just for the day. They'll talk to you about a whole bunch of different stuff. And it's really interesting. They're very knowledgeable. The husband did once work for Area 51, so he has a lot of stories based on things he's allowed to say. But he does tell you, I can't talk about that if there's something he can't talk about. Walk around replicated buildings, and they do other tours. You could also, it's a very popular place for photos, high school graduation photos, engagement photos. People have even gone out there for wedding photos. So it's interesting. It's just husband and wife, Heather. So it's just the two of them that live in the town. And then there's a few other people in the outskirts of the area, but actually Nelson is fully owned by them. So it's a real cute town. And they're actually the family, the couple is actually featured in Real Haunts Ghost Towns with us. So then they talk about their experiences and everything that they've had there. So is Nelson haunted? These photos are of the mine that we actually investigated, because the couple doesn't allow people to actually do investigations in town because they don't want to be known as a haunted location, even though they know they're haunted. And this one is, we investigated this one. This one is just outside of the downtown area. It was home to several shootings that occurred during the gold rush. It's reported that this mine is very haunted. When we were in the mine, we experienced seeing shadow figures walking around, and we couldn't confirm if it was someone outside or not. But when we did get out of the mine, there was nobody around. So chances of someone being there, we're not too sure, but it's a possibility. Hearing footsteps, water dripping, just a lot of strange occurrences happening down there in those shafts, and very creepy once you get in there.
What if you're claustrophobic? Is it scary?
Depending on the mine you go into, this one it was a narrow and steep path down. But once we got into the mine, it opened up like really big, almost like a 3 or 4 story building.
Oh, geez.
And then it had offshoots with smaller tunnels. But we were told before we went in there, because you don't want to go into a mine unless you know about it. Because we were told to before going in there. Luckily, we had the film crew that had already gotten the instructions. But they had said, don't go down these shafts, because if you make the wrong turn, you could end up with a bottomless pit.
Oh, geez. I think we need to mark those.
Yeah. So we stayed in the big open area and didn't go any further.
Is there natural light in there, or do they have lighting in there?
No, it's all natural light that comes in.
Okay.
Yeah. Because these holes that are here, are like, there's a lot of them, not just these.
Oh, okay.
So the only thing that upset me about it is it's all graffiti.
Oh,
and it's so sad. It's so sad to see all the graffiti that was there. Okay. Do we want to do questions first or start with Gold Point?
There was just one question, but it was just something kind of funny. Aurora said, have you ever found a ghost town that's actually filled with ghosts? Because ghost town doesn't necessarily mean that there's ghosts in it. Yeah, no. Coming up soon, Gold Point and Goldfield, I would say there are more ghosts than people. So, and it's funny too, because like I said earlier, there's a lot of ghost towns. They're still called ghost towns, even though they don't have ghosts. Yeah. So. Oh, I see a couple more. Michelle said, how bad are the rattlesnakes out there? We've never encountered one while investigating, but when we were out hiking, we could hear them.
So, but we know outside of that, we had never seen any rattlesnakes out there at all. And then, Heather, are you guided by a local, or you just go in and see what happens? We actually don't go into any location without either having a local guide because we don't know the mines or the areas, or we do like we did with the film crew. We get a briefing on where to go and where not to go. So we always make sure that we're safe and that we're prepared before we go into these. Because with mines, even with the state of Florida, they have a campaign going on that says, don't go, basically. Don't go into these mines. Okay, so Gold Point. I talked about this one a little bit earlier. This is another one. It was actually bought by two brothers and their friend or their partner. One of the brothers hit it big in Vegas, but liked living a desolate life. Sheriff Cremens is also in Real Haunts Ghost Towns with us. He is a crazy character. Him and his, the two others own the town. There's maybe 10 residents in the town that they let people, because there are some people who do live there, but they own a majority of the buildings and everything. But when we were there, he pulls up on his ATV, this short little guy, and gun on his hip, and he calls himself the sheriff, even though he's not a legal sheriff. And he puts his hand on his hip and he's like, how can I help you? And, you kind of just, but once he warms up to you, he's like, come on in, let's have a drink. And he gives you a drink at the bar. And I mean, very, very friendly guy. But this town was originally settled by ranchers and miners in the 1880s. It was originally called Lime Point. And then when silver was discovered, it was changed to Horn Silver. And then the Great Western Mine Company began operations in 1905. And throughout the years, it had a whole bunch of different things happening there. You can see it's a true Wild West town. When you walk through the downtown area, I should have taken a photo of it, but I didn't. But there is a hangman's noose right next to a ticket booth. What that meant, we have no idea. It was just very interesting that they would sell tickets to see a hanging, but who knows what they did in the West. And you had the post office, which is now a museum. And it was operated by Ora May Wiley, which was the postmistress. She operated it from 1940 to 1964. And it is actually believed that she is still delivering mail. People will stay in the cabins, because you can go and stay in the miners' cabins, but you won't have a bathroom. You'll have to use the outhouse. And there's only one outhouse in the middle of the town. So you'll have to use that if you do stay there, but they are open. And it's beautiful at night. There's no lights in the town, so you can see all the stars. It's the darkest spot in Nevada. Absolutely gorgeous. And people who stay in these cabins actually will hear knocks on the door. And when they open the door, there's no one there. So they believe that it's Ora May Wiley delivering mail throughout the town. And it became a ghost town when people started moving away when all of the mining operations stopped in World War II. Okay, it's another one of the most well-preserved ghost towns. The brothers and the partner did a very good job. It offers insight to history. They're very knowledgeable about the history of the town. There's 15 buildings that stand today, including post office and former Senator Harry Wiley's home. The town was saved by Herb Robbins of Las Vegas, who partnered with Chuck and Walt. They purchased several of the buildings in town, and they've taken care of these buildings, restoring them to their original condition. And visitors are welcome to walk through the town, stopping by the post office museum, grabbing a drink at the saloon, or staying in one of the mining shacks. And this town, even though it's not really, Walt does allow people to come in and do paranormal investigations, but he's not thrilled about it. But he does allow it because he does understand that they get, that keeps people coming to the town.
I mean, when are they going to realize ghost equals money? I mean, that's the way it is here in Atlanta.
Right.
No,
I think Walt just likes to live out there by himself. I think he would be happy if he had no visitors.
I wonder if, some of these ghost towns have objects that are native to that town. I wonder if any of those may have attachments. The objects, some of the antiques, maybe.
I'm wondering that, but I'm not sure if it was, because when we were in the saloon, the photo here, the back half had a pool table and a second bar. And when I was back there, I was flooded with emotions. Everything from happy to sad to excitement to joy. And it was just, and I don't know if it was because the place had a whole bunch of artifacts,
Yeah.
It looked like a TGI Fridays with all the stuff on the walls.
Oh, that's cool. I love that.
All the walls were packed with stuff. And then the pool table there was original from when the town was first built.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's interesting. It was if it wasn't so far out of the way, it would be a town I would have visited more often. Okay, is Gold Point haunted? Paranormal reports, I talked about the mining cabins. People have also seen shadows in the mining cabins, as well as when you stay in the cabins do have electricity, not much, just enough to operate a little reading lamp and a TV VCR combo. And they do have VHS videos that you can borrow to watch while you're staying there because there's no cable. So, but people have reported those turning on and off on their own while they're there. But that could be the funky electricity that they have out in the middle of nowhere. Other experiences include seeing shadow figures walking through the town, heavy feeling, sensation of being watched and touched in the saloon. We had conducted an EVP session near that Hangman's Noose, and we had out here, there was no radio station. So the spirit box was just all static. And the minute we turned it on, we didn't even say hello yet. And we had different voices, men, women, old, young, saying hello, 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 hi, hi. And they're actually answering our questions during the EVP session at that Hangman's Noose. So it was really interesting. They wanted to talk. And then other reports, one report that I have in the book is a friend of mine was out there investigating and that he saw light anomalies that were combination in the sky, out in the desert. And, it's one of those, he had double checked to make sure that it wasn't the highway, and there was no highway where he was seeing these lights, and they were different colors. So they wouldn't have been, street lights or anything or car lights. So, and he saw an object appear in the sky above him and then disappear. So there's also alien activity believed to happen out in Gold Point. Okay, Goldfield. This is probably one of the most popular. Similar to Skinwalker Ranch. Yep. Or Goldfield is probably one of the most known outside of Carson City and all of those. But Goldfield is one of the most known ghost towns in Nevada. In 1902, gold was found in Goldfield, and that word reached Tonopah, and that is when the boom started. Goldfield's population was more than 20,000 people at the time. And it was the largest city, and it was also the state capital at one point before they changed it. The downtown area, a lot of it was destroyed by fire in 1905. Then in 1906, federal troops were called to help with a labor dispute between the industrial and mining workers and the Western Federation of Miners. The town was booming with 3 railroads, banks, 5 newspapers, 2 mining stock exchanges, 4 schools, and the Goldfield High School I'll talk about in a little bit. That's one of the most haunted locations at the town. And then dozens and dozens of saloons. The mining drastically dropped in 1910, and it slowed down. Population suddenly went to 5,000 people. And then this town also suffered another fire, as well as, in 1923, suffered a fire. And that burned down most of the downtown area. And after that, the city never fully recovered. The Florence mine, which we'll talk about, also suffered several fires. So basically, this poor town had one tragedy after another. The flood that came through, I believe, killed 2 people. And I'm not sure the number of deaths. I know one fire, there was no deaths, but then the other fire, I can't remember exactly how many deaths there were.
Heather wanted to know how many times it was flooded.
Goldfield, I believe, was only flooded once significantly to where it actually washed houses away and destroyed part of the downtown area.
Jeez.
Okay. Goldfield High School. This was a new high school, 3 stories. It was 19,656 square feet. It had 12 classrooms, auditorium, 2 offices, 2 bathrooms, 4 storage rooms. The basketball court was the first indoor basketball court in a high school in the state. Outside of the only other indoor basketball, full-size basketball court was at UNLV at the time. It had an extra large attic for storage, and it held 450 students, teachers, and faculty. This is one of the few historic landmarks that was not destroyed during any of the fires. But as you can see, Goldfield High School needs a little work, and it is believed to be extremely haunted. Everything from footsteps. People have reported playing with a little boy or a little girl. They leave a ball in the middle of the room after testing to make sure the floor was level. The ball has moved upon being asked. One person who I have featured in the book, he shared a story with me that said that he was in the room conducting an investigation, and it was just an EVP session. His sister was in a room down the hall, and when he got back home, he was listening, and he had an EVP that says, "Lizzie's here." And when his sister, Elizabeth, but he called her Liz, came into there shortly after, like right after the ghost said, she was there. So he found that very interesting and very creepy after the fact. And people do believe that there is a school teacher because you can hear high heels walking down the stairs while you're there.
What year was this built? Is it?
Oh, shoot. Let me...
1900s.
I
mean, it looks pretty dilapidated. Can you go in it?
If you book it, yeah.
Oh.
You have to book it because it was built in 1907.
Okay.
And it only cost $103,000 to build.
Wow.
But yeah.
So it's safe to go in, the floors and everything?
Most of them, yeah. It's people do go in for paranormal investigations. I know several of the TV shows and documentaries have been in there. We didn't go in for that because that wasn't the focus of our the documentary we were filming. But I do know several people who have done it, and they do offer tours. And then you can book it to spend the night overnight. And Heather, I'm not sure if it was ever used for emergency evacuations. That's not one thing I came across in my research. But it doesn't mean it wasn't, because a lot of schools today are used for that. So that could be a common practice. Okay, Nixon Cook buildings. These 2 buildings are near the high school. They have been destroyed, even though other parts of the towns have been destroyed. These have been not fully destroyed, but have been rebuilt and brought to their original glory. Luckily, they're still standing. It is the Nixon building, and they're kind of almost like the same building, but they call them 2 separate buildings. Their natural beauty and architecture, you can see them. It's gorgeous. And what's funny is if you walk through the town, even though these buildings aren't open, they have the owners of the buildings have set it up where you can look in the windows and see, what the bank would have looked like with the teller stands. And they've put mannequins up, and they actually have mannequins looking out the windows down at the people in the street. So it's really cool. And also in these, it is believed that I think it was the Nixon building had in the stairwell, a woman was found thrown over the railing, and it's believed that she was either going to out John Cook for bank fraud, or she was having an affair with him, and she was going to tell everybody that she was having an affair with him to ruin his reputation, and that he was the one who threw her over the stairwell, killing her. But there's no proof as to if that's true or not. And her ghost is believed to haunt that stairwell. People hear moans, cries, and screams coming from that stairwell. Okay, the Florence Mine. This is my absolute favorite place to investigate. Holy crap. This was nonstop activity from the moment we arrived. In 1902, Charlie Taylor founded the mine. Thomas Lockhart and his partner, A.D. Parker, bought half interest, and they eventually took control of the mine. Then in 1923, Martin Duffy leased part of the mine. He eventually took ownership with his wife, Ruth Grove, who was a school teacher in the town. And then Ruth ended up almost adopting John Ulrich, who's the owner today, and she ended up leaving the mine to him and his family. It's not in operation today, but John and his son do offer tours. I'm not sure if they're offering paranormal tours or not. I need to talk to John soon anyway, because I'm hoping to book something out there with him when I go back out to Vegas. But we were at the time the first and only team to go in and do a paranormal investigation. And we were doing it because we were filming a documentary for Discovery Channel, which ended up getting shelved because of COVID, because we went the February before everything shut down.
Yep. Yep.
We were there that February, and then COVID hit, and they
Good
shelved
old COVID in 2020. Yep.
Yep. Completely ruined all of that. But these photos are inside the hoist house. Inside there, over by the turbines, I had heard voices. We were in a storage closet just off to the side doing the investigation, and I had heard voices. So I stepped out into this main area. Nobody out there, and it sounded almost like workers discussing what needed to be done. And then what ended up happening, I ended up walking around the entire building, making sure there was nobody there, even though we knew nobody was there. And it was just quiet as can be, but I could still hear the voices even when I was in the room. And it was just a very, very interesting place. In the storage closet, the investigator I was with, he was standing there conducting an EVP session. And behind him, we could see someone standing behind him. And the other investigator, I don't want to say big guy, but he's pretty tall. And the shadow was taller than he was. So the shadow had to have been 6.5 to 7 feet tall. And it was just very, very creepy and very intimidating.
Can you investigate at night, or they just do daytime investigating?
We investigated at night, but
Okay.
we were there for 2 full days.
Oh, great.
So yeah, we were there for 2 full days. We did daytime and nighttime investigations. And it was nonstop. And we actually, I think that might be on the next page, but we actually got to spend the night in the mine owner's home.
Oh,
He let us camp out in his living room, which, let me just make sure it's not on the next slide before I continue. Nope. Okay. I will talk about what happened at the mine. I thought I had a slide for that, but I guess I didn't. So going back to, I wonder if I can go back. Nope. Oh, well. Basically, the experiences that we had outside of the hoist house is we were walking through the mill house, and when we looked up, there was a hangman's noose hanging from the rafters, and something was telling me to look up. And when I looked up, there was a shadow figure crouching down over the noose. When we talked to the owner and the owner's son, they had no idea that noose was there. So whether it was a stage prop because we were filming the documentary, or who knows what, if they're telling us the truth, I believe them. But it's out of the way and they're not there 24/7. So who knows who could have come onto their property and hung that there. But it was interesting that there was a shadow figure there. In the horse barn, there were shadow figures walking. I mean, a lot of shadow figures at this place, walking in the rafters. We investigated one of the collapsed mines. And this one is a story I tell a lot. We had gone in there. We actually had to crawl into this mine. And then there was a spot where we could stand up, and then another section where we had to crawl, and that dead ended where it had collapsed. And while we were doing the investigation where we were all standing up, something was telling me I had to continue going further back. So I went further back, did an EVP session, and partway through, I would say I wasn't even back there 5 minutes total. I couldn't breathe. I was hearing men screaming. I felt like I was being crushed. I started crying, and they ended up getting me out of there. And we found out that it had collapsed and men were still in the mine when it had collapsed, and they're not sure that they got everybody out.
Oh, geez.
So they don't know if there's still people buried in there or not.
You picked up on that.
Oh, yeah, I did. And once they got me out, I was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Then another one of our investigators, he went down into the deeper mine shaft where he had to climb a ladder straight down. And he had everything from dizziness. He knew he wasn't alone. He was being touched. When he got out, he was weak. So it was like something took his energy while he was in there. And he had some strange experiences in there, some that he won't even talk about or that he just forgot. So we don't know the full story on that one. But when we were in the mine owner's home, we had everything from, it smelled like burning, like the oil lamps burning when they didn't have anything like that. And we actually ran around the house looking, we thought the house was on fire and there was nothing. The investigator I was with, he said he saw a man walking around the house. And when the owner grabbed a photo from the wall and said, "Is this him?" It was him. And that was Duffy, who was the owner of the mine before his wife Ruth gave it to John. When we were sleeping at night, I was sleeping on the couch. The other investigator was on the floor, and the mine owner's children and his nieces and nephews, because they also had nieces and nephews come over and stay for the weekend, were camping out on the floor also. And something woke me up in the middle of the night screaming in my ear, "I didn't start the fire." And the minute I jumped up, there was nobody there.
Oh, wow.
And everybody else was sound asleep. So if someone was yelling that in the middle of the house, people would have gotten up, or at least had been stirring, and everybody was still sound asleep. So it was just one of those, it was like, okay. And throughout the night, the next morning, the other investigator and I shared what we experienced. He had seen like a black shadow figure just walking around the house, checking on everybody, but carefully walking over people as they slept. And I saw the same thing.
Wonder if somebody got blamed for the fire and it wasn't their fault. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, that's what the actual mine owner, he said he was, because he's also the town's historian. So he was going to research it more and look into that. So I'm hoping he has information on that. So, okay. Moving on to the Goldfield Cemetery. Goldfield Cemetery is also known as the Last Dig. Kind of a creepy and morbid name to give a place, but that's what it is. It is believed that the cemetery is home to more graves than there are residents in the town. Before its current location, the cemetery was located in downtown Goldfield, where the train station. So people would get off the train into a cemetery. Politicians decided that that was not the place to welcome new residents to town. So a group of volunteers and gravediggers called themselves the Official Ghouls. They worked in a single night, relocating everybody in the cemetery, gravestones, caskets, and everything to where it is currently today, just outside of town. You can see crudely marked tombstones. I have examples of some of them, including one of a man who died from eating library paste. That's what his tombstone says. It's right there. He died from eating.
Accidentally, on purpose. We need EVPs from this guy to figure out what happened.
Yeah, we tried, and we actually even tried. There was one gravestone we wanted to find of a Thomas Meagler, I believe was his name. He was the grave digger, and he was well into his 80s and 90s. And he was digging a grave, and he couldn't get out. He had slipped and fallen and couldn't get out of the grave he was building in time before the dynamite blew.
Oh, geez.
And a rock went through his skull, killing him instantly, and they just buried him in that grave rather than putting him in a different one. So then they built another grave for the person it was intended for originally.
That's convenient.
Yeah. So we tried to find his grave, but we couldn't find it. So
now, they probably did not move every single grave.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. That's probably why it's so haunted.
Yeah.
But it's divided into two different sections, and a ton of stories. People have seen shadow figures. We did an EVP session, or actually my son did an EVP session near a grave. His name was Marmaduke, and it was a Confederate soldier. My son thought it was the most interesting thing because, in Nevada, you don't often see a grave. I mean, it had a Confederate flag. People had visited, and they were, the military leaving the pennies, nickels, and all of that was all over, and bottle caps and everything. I mean, and it looked like it was a very well respected grave and very well kept still. So there must still be family in the area that helps keep that one up. But he conducted an EVP session there and got interaction with a female. So very, very interesting, but it's gravestones and crosses as far as you can see. Okay, the Goldfield Hotel. This is this place I would love to investigate inside, but at the time we were there, they weren't doing investigations, and now it is up for, we actually had an investigation planned, but it's now up for sale, so that investigation is on hold. But they do, once it sells, I think they're asking for like 2.5 million. Once it sells, hopefully they open it back up to investigations. But it was constructed where two hotels had previously existed. They were made out of wood, but they were burned down by the fires. In 1908, the hotel officially opened, and he had such a lavish grand opening featuring live entertainment, formal dinners. At the time, the hotel it was 4 stories. had granite stone that was brought in from Rockland, California, public restrooms on the main floor, guest rooms on the upper floor, 150 sleeping rooms, 45 suites, porches, whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it was the best of the best. It had an on-site power plant that, produced steam heat, running water, which not a lot of hotels had at the time, running elevators, which was new. And it actually had one of the fastest elevators in Nevada at the time that ran 300 feet per minute. So if you think about that today, that's not really that fast. But back then, that kind of moved us on. But when you go into the actual dining room, it had a separate entrance for men and women to go into the dining room. Men entered through the saloon, and they had separate entrances because women were not allowed to go in the saloon area. It also had crystal electric lights, and I don't have proof of it, but several people have reported that an urban legend is that they also had champagne flowing down the stairs in the hotel. But I think it was just a news article that basically said champagne was flowing, meaning everybody had champagne, but it got turned and twisted over the years to what that one is.
Wow.
So, but this is a very interesting hotel. Also, another one of the most haunted locations in town. If you look at the top window on the top right corner or top left corner of the photo, that room is believed to be haunted by the mistress of the owner of the hotel, who was believed to have been chained to a radiator because she was pregnant with his child. When the child was born, it is believed that the owner took the child and dumped it down a mine shaft, which was believed to be in the basement. However, further research shows that there was no mine shaft in the basement. The nearest one was 30 yards away. So whether that story is true or not, people hear cries, a woman crying in that room. They also hear baby cries in the basement. People have also experienced technical difficulties with all of their equipment when they enter that room. And some people have even seen the apparition of a woman waving from the window. Almost, and it's not like a wave, a high wave. It's more of a wave, like I need help type of wave, trying to get people's attentions. And then, of course, you have everything from footsteps. Some paranormal investigators I've talked to, they have cigar smoke. One report has a ghost that would jump out from behind curtains and just scare the crap out of people. And they, run away. But then other people in the group are like, what are you running away from? Because no one else can see this ghost. So it's just a lot of interesting stories coming from this hotel. And as you can see, when we were up there investigating, this was in February. It was sunny the day before we got there, and then this is what we had the day we investigated.
Have you been to the Flagler College, but it was built as a hotel, in St. Augustine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't been there yet.
There's a similar story. Mr. Flagler had a mistress that he had in the hotel with his wife and family, and he kept promising to marry her. Of course, never did, and she threw herself down the staircase and broke her neck, and she haunts the building. These men and their mistresses, come on. Put them in a different hotel.
It's, who knows? It was a crazy time.
But also, there was a men's lounge, like you said, in the ladies' lounge, and at the Flagler, the men would go pay for their stay because he had to stay like 3 months. The women weren't allowed to see the exchange of money because the thought was that they mentally couldn't handle seeing that much money, that it would cause them to pass out and faint and all this. It's just the funniest things that they thought back then.
It's too funny. Yeah, that's why women are always blamed for spending too much money now.
That's a good point.
So is Goldfield haunted? There are several rumors throughout the town. I've talked about some of them as we've gone. The photo on the top, that's actually the mine we had to crawl in where I had that experience. The photo in the middle is just a little garage that I thought was a neat location, but there's no haunted paranormal activity. And the photo on the bottom is a former brothel. And I can't share it yet, but I do have a photo of that building with a spirit of a ghost that we've tried to debunk. We've tried to do it. I mean, we've done everything to try to say, no, that's not what it is, but it is. And once Real Haunts 3 gets released, I can start sharing the photo. They just wanted me to hold off until it was released.
That with me a long time ago.
I did.
Yeah.
I've had to sit on it because I got that while we were filming.
Oh, that's gonna drive you crazy.
It is.
No, you can't look. Yeah.
No. And I shared it with a few people like you just to make sure, hey, is this what I think it is? But yeah, it's but hopefully that comes out soon so I can share it, because I've been, like I said, once I caught it and showed it to the producers, they're like, well, sit on that until we release all the shows in case we use it. So that's been killing me. I talked about the Jonas Cook building, the hotel, Florence mine. Actually, one I didn't talk about, Virgil Earp. Virgil Earp and Wyatt Earp actually resided in Goldfield. Virgil was the deputy sheriff before his death. He actually died in Goldfield. I have a copy of his death certificate, as well as I have a copy of his swearing in certificate to be the deputy sheriff. It's believed his official death was pneumonia on the record, but people do. And Wyatt Earp, actually, he didn't die there, but he did visit Virgil a lot, and he acted as a bouncer and a bartender at several of the saloons in town. Sightings, you can see Virgil Earp walking through the downtown main area. People see, his typical big hat and big lavish mustache, and then he just disappears as he's walking through the street. So that's one spirit I was hoping to catch a hold of.
You wonder how much is residual.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's so many stories that, you'd have to do a lengthy investigation to try to capture communication.
Yep. And the Virgil apparition could be residual because it's going from the saloon that he used to go drinking at to the Goldfield Hotel. It was on that street. So that could easily have been that.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodsprings and Prim. Goodsprings was named after Joseph Good. He was a cattle farmer who frequented the hills of the area with his cattle. It was once one of the most productive mining districts in Clark County. Mines produced lead, copper, gold, zinc. Before 1900s, a small group of tent cabins, a post office, and a mill were built. More buildings were constructed over the years, as you can see. But it still kind of stayed a small town. The railroad came after the town boomed around 1910 to 1911. Schoolhouse was built in 1913, and it is actually the oldest school in Clark County that is still operational. It is on the National Register of Historic Places. And then after World War I, mining operations slowed, and many of the residents left, leaving about 200 residents today.
Aurora has a question. Did these hotels have did the saloons have working women, or were they relegated to the brothels?
They were mostly regulated to the brothels, but I'm sure some of them hung out at the saloons to attract attention, because you had to get the men to the brothels somehow.
True.
So, yeah. And
I'm sure they knew where the brothels were.
Then there's a lot more brothels than this, just that one photo, because I know there's a whole row of houses that we just never made it to, but I've seen several people go there and investigate and have had some interesting stories, because there was it was a row of just they almost look like minor cabins, just one room cabins lined up in a row.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was very interesting.
And they were probably just murdered all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah. And
no families, no one to claim them or upset that they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very, very active. Real quick, I'm going to go through the other questions that I see here real quick. Did you feel sad, mad, confused? This was probably about when I was in the mine. Yeah, I wasn't myself. And what I found funny is the camera guy who crawled back there with me, he continued filming the whole thing. Well, I'm just falling apart. He's filming everything. The rest of the team's like, come on, Heather, come on.
Thanks for good video.
I know, he's filming the whole thing. So yeah, I was not myself And I didn't even feel like I was myself. It was just, I thought I was dying is how it felt. It was the end of the world for me when I was in there. Okay. How far down in the ground can we detect bones with equipment? And was that ever done in the area? I don't know. That's one thing. I don't know if they've done that in Goldfield. I don't know if they want to do that because I don't think they want to let people know that they didn't get all of the.
There you go. Bingo. Plus, it's very expensive because I think they do it with sonar and they have to grid an area and roll this thing over back and forth, and it will show kind of like a metal detector, but it's looking, down in the ground.
Right.
But
yeah, and they've built a lot of things over the stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if they can get to it. And then a crystal electric light's basically like an electric chandelier, but back then that's what they called them. And I have not investigated a brothel yet. I have plans, hopefully, when we go back out to Vegas, because I have to do a book tour. But yeah, I have not investigated brothel. I know several people who have, and they've had some interesting experiences. I know one investigator, a story he shares with me. It was actually the brothel in Betty. He was asking questions, and something told him to ask, did you only service men? And he got a clear EVP that said, no, I serviced women too.
Oh, wow. Just equal opportunity moneymaker.
Exactly. And very, very, very interesting.
But what's interesting are that there were women back then who would pay for that, which is a very interesting thought.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, the secrecy, they couldn't let people know.
No, not at all.
So that was their best way to.
There were probably lesbian, well, I'll take that back. That's not correct. But probably female miners who presented as a male. Mm-hmm. Because they wanted in on the gold and silver, and that men probably didn't know that they were women. I'm sure that's happened before in wars and things. That.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, you never know. It's one of those. I would just love to jump back in time.
You'd sit in the corner and watch.
Yeah.
But when you go back, you should dress as a saloon girl to try to get some trigger.
I might have to do that. No. I always thought about dressing up, but I never thought about that when I was in Vegas. Yeah. I've always mostly thought about it like for Civil War reenactments and all that, but.
Yeah, I have my Union outfit that I have worn a few times at Civil War places.
Yeah, I've seen those videos.
Yeah, and we're going back to Franklin, Tennessee at the end of the month. I got a EVP. A male, he says he'll hurt me, and it was after I had been choked. Mm-hmm. And I need to apologize to that spirit because I felt so bad when I heard that EVP because it was probably my Union uniform, and he thought I'm going to hurt him. Oh my gosh! It just broke my heart when I heard that EVP. It's like I'm so sorry, So I'm going to apologize to him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm actually, now you have my gears turning. I'm going to have to do that because with the book tour, I'm working with Flumery Events, and we're trying to do, we have a whole bunch of locations in Vegas we're going to do, but we're also going to try to get out to the Pioneer Saloon.
Yeah.
We're going to hopefully get out to there, and that would be a perfect place to dress up like that, as well as maybe at the saloon in Goldfield as well.
Trigger object devices. We have some, that if you trigger trays, if you put an object on it and touch it, it lights up. That would be a good place to use it, and maybe put some fake gold nuggets and some other goodies on. I bet that'd get a good reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I need to be better prepared when I go next time, because every time I've done an investigation, it was like last minute.
Yeah.
And, we got the call saying, hey, we're filming, or, hey, this place opened up. Can you be there in an hour?
In an hour? Oh my gosh, it takes me all night to charge my battery packs.
I charged him in the car on the way there.
Yeah.
I've had some investigations where it's like I had to leave like the minute I got the call. Pioneer Saloon. Goodsprings is home to the Pioneer Saloon. It's one of the oldest saloons in Nevada that's still operational. The walls are adorned with bullet holes that they've left there. There is a coroner's note that describes how the holes were created, especially from one which was a gunfight when a gambler was caught cheating. Back in the day, when the doors opened, it was basically the social epicenter for town. People went there to get news, to chit chat, to interact with each other. It was basically where everybody went to hang out. The interior is made with stamped tin manufacturing walls from Sears and Roebuck. They basically ordered it out of a catalog and built the saloon. It's a solid wood bar that was made in Maine in the 1860s, and the original stove that was used to heat the building still heats the building today. And it is home to the mouth-watering Ghost Burger, and it is a burger that I think it's like a double or triple decker burger, but it's made with ghost pepper sauce.
Oh, no. Well, I was all in until you said that.
Yeah, no, it's with ghost pepper sauce, and it's one of the spiciest burgers, but it is their most ordered item on the menu.
You would kill me. So how on earth do you get a bar from Maine all the way out here in a saloon? I'd like to know that story.
And especially in the 1860s.
Yeah.
A slow wagon ride.
And who would have thought? I mean,
yeah, either a slow wagon ride or, strategically trained.
I can see the decorator now. Oh, I know of a beautiful bar in Maine that would look great here. Interesting. You got to look that up. You got to find out about. Oh, I love this. Clark and Carol. Oh.
Yeah, and Clark and Carol are actually connected to the Pioneer Saloon. It's famous for many reasons. When Carol Lombard's plane crashed in January of 1942, it was in Potosi, which I'll talk about a little bit later. During that cross-country flight, her plane crashed in the mountains after fueling up in Vegas to head out to California. Clark rushed to the Pioneer Saloon, where search parties started from. He waited to hear news from the search parties at the saloon. He sat at the end of the corner of the bar, heavily drinking. Some people said that he couldn't even talk when they tried to talk to him. He was so drunk. He would burn holes in the bar with his cigar as he nodded off. The plane had crashed, 22 passengers, and all in the plane perished with it. People today see Carol, the apparition of Carol, wandering the saloon looking for Clark to console him. Other people have seen Clark Gable sitting at the corner of the bar. Other people smell cigar smoke at the end of the bar.
Okay, I just got cold chills on that.
Other paranormal activity outside of Clark and Carol include people see an apparition of a former bartender. People see the apparition of a former miner who walks through the front door, acts like he owns the place, sits down at the bar, and when he sits down, he disappears. So a lot of interesting stories there, including, going back to the gunshots in the wall. People have heard gunfire when nobody has shot a gun in the area.
Have you ever gotten a gunshot EVP?
No. I've gotten a dinosaur growl.
Okay. You sure wasn't a demon growl?
It could have been, but we were investigating, and Aiden describes it as, it sounds like what we would think a pterodactyl would sound like. It was like a growling, squawking noise.
I need to hear that.
Yeah, I'll have to play it for you. And we know it wasn't any of us because it was on a platform 6 feet away from anybody. So it wasn't a stomach. It wasn't. Yeah, because everybody's like, "Oh, that's your stomach." I'm like, "Well, how could it be my stomach if it was 6 feet away from everybody?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have to find it and play that for you. But that was an interesting one.
This is a great story, Clark and Carol. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they also haunt. There's a town, Oatman. They're also believed to haunt Oatman, where they had their honeymoon. And in their hotel room, they've been believed to have been seen in the room where they spent their honeymoon.
Well, they're getting around.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. I talked about the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse is believed to be haunted by former students and a school teacher. The small cabins, which you can see here, they're completely abandoned now, but people have seen strange light lights appearing in and around the cabins, lights going in and out of the windows, not bugs because it's with the naked eye and not on a camera. Disembodied voices and a whole bunch of other sounds, strange sounds occur near these mining cabins.
I'm going to tell everybody right now, I will not be haunting my high school or my elementary school. That's the last dang place on the planet that I would want to wander around eternity is in school.
Yeah, nope. I can think of better places to haunt.
I hated it while I was there, and I'm not spending eternity in my high school.
The history of Primm. This is a cute little town. As you can see from the aerial, it is directly on the border between Nevada and California. This is where everybody in Las Vegas went to get their lottery tickets since Nevada didn't have the lotto. So if we wanted to try to win $1 billion like they did at that one time, the line was 5 hours long. Then there's just this one little small lotto location just across the border in California, and that would be in Primm here. But it's formerly known as State Line, but the name was changed because there was another town called State Line and it was confused between them, and that was in northern Nevada. It was renamed after Ernest J. Primm, who was the town's original developer. The town basically made its name from casinos. Like I said, the Little Lotto. There's a hotel with an amusement park. When you drive through it, because you actually have to drive through it, and there's an overpass. You can see the roller coasters all over the place and all the different things. Whiskey Pete's, which is Whiskey Pete's Saloon, is one of the casinos there. It was named after Pete McIntyre. He had owned the gas station that was originally there in the 1920s. He basically, even if you didn't have money, he filled your tank up for you and let you go on your way because he didn't want to see anyone get stranded because it was such a lonely highway. And anyone who's driven this from Nevada, Las Vegas to California, you go hours without seeing anybody outside of other cars. But now there's more cars, but you still today go for an hour or two before seeing any civilization. Suddenly, Whiskey Pete had trouble making ends meet, and he turned to bootlegging. So he was also rumored to have been buried in 1933 standing up. They put his casket in the ground standing up, and they put a glass of whiskey in his hand. And they said that was done to watch over the area. And it was kind of like, he was still protecting his land. His body was eventually accidentally exhumed when they were building the overpass, and they found his body. So that's how we know it was buried standing up. And so they relocated his body to the hills in the mountains where he used to cook his whiskey.
Well, I guess rigor mortis had those knees locked where he could stand up.
Yeah.
Not
slump down.
We need to ask somebody about that. An embalmer or something.
Yeah, I don't think I know any, but we'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah, can be buried standing up.
Famous landmarks. You have Buffalo Bill's Resort and Casino, and that's home to the amusement park you can see there. And then you have at Whiskey Pete's, it's Bonnie and Clyde's exhibit. It is the actual death car featuring the bullet riddled death car from Bonnie and Clyde that they had stolen. It was the V8 Ford. And Clyde's death shirt is also located there. That
is so morbid, but that is so cool because I would totally love to see that.
Yep. Yeah. And hauntings in the air.
My black blood out all over that car looking for blood.
Exactly. And I'm sure it's filled with it.
Yeah.
Whiskey Pete is known to be seen overlooking the casino from the balcony, overlooking the casino floor. Guests feel like they're being watched. Some guests have actually reported going to their car and having a full tank of gas when they didn't have a full tank of gas when they arrived. That one still amazes me. I have no idea on that one.
I wonder if they would charge your batteries. You know how they're always running your batteries out. I wonder if they
recharge your batteries for us.
Now that's a good ghost right there. Filling your car up. Yeah.
But that goes along with the rumor that he would give people free gas because he didn't want them running out while they were traveling to California. So who knows if it's legend or if it's true or who knows. People have reported seeing apparitions in the Bonnie and Clyde death car. Strange lights have been seen floating around and in and out of the windows of the death cart as well. Now, this place isn't commonly known for being haunted. I just think it's a cool place. But some people have seen shadow figures running around in between the structures. This is an outdoor art installation just outside of Las Vegas on your way to Jean. And it's just really great for photos. I like to include this because I always say, it's free. Doesn't take you long, maybe a half hour to visit because it's just colored rocks, but it's really neat and impressive when you actually get there and stand next to these rocks. As you can see, there's people standing around them and they're huge.
You can refer to it as Rainbow Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, it's neat. We went there, and then what's funny is, I don't know if it was little kids or if people were just doing it, but there were little miniature versions with smaller rocks in the ground around it. So it's really cute. Okay, Potosi. Potosi was founded in 1856 by prospecting Mormons from Las Vegas. The railroads had transported gold and silver from the town. Eventually, this town was the top producer of zinc in the state. It was believed to be one of the oldest mines in the state, dating back to the 1830s. And this is the site of the TWA Flight 3 crash, killing 22 people, including Carol Lombard. And a lot of people, what's interesting about this site is you can only get to it by ATV. So you just can't go and see the site. But a lot of the wreckage that was left behind after the investigation was done is still there, and people are respecting it and leaving it there. When people explore the area, they hear cries, screams, moans, and sensation of sadness when people go visit it.
That would be very cool to go see.
Mm-hmm.
Morbid, but very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do. We're morbid.
Well, yep, you got a point.
St. Thomas. Very interesting town. It is part of the Lake Mead recreational area. This town was buried underwater. When they decided to build the Hoover Dam, they flooded St. Thomas to make Lake Mead. But with the waters receding now, the entire town is now visible. You can see structures such as the one showing here. It was founded by 1865 Mormon settlers, and it was originally known as the Lost City, but that was moved across the street to not confuse it with, or across the river at the time, to not confuse it with the Mormon settlers that were coming there. It was buried underwater for more than 70 years. It's now available to explore. People hear cries. Everybody had gotten out of St. Thomas in time, except for one person who was stubborn enough and said he wasn't leaving. And I've seen different reports, some saying that he did die from drowning, and other reports saying that he didn't, that they actually pulled him out of there. So I'm not sure, that's inconclusive on that one, but it's a very, very interesting place to go explore. And it actually was one of the first places to have a gas station pit stop for people traveling between Arizona and Nevada.
We have something similar. This lake that I mentioned earlier, mm-hmm. Lake Lanier, there was a town called Oscarville that dated way back, that was primarily an African-American small town. And then the white people wanted the town, so they burned out, ran out a lot of basically all the African-American people, because they were terrified they were going to be killed. A lot of them were killed. And then Corps of Engineers said, we're going to build a lake, and they flooded the town anyway. But it also flooded all the cemeteries that they said that they moved the graves. They know they didn't. I mean, we all know they didn't. You can see videos on YouTube of people scuba diving around, all the headstones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, that's how we get hauntings, people.
And that's why I wish I had my scuba certification, because I would love to scuba dive and see if there's paranormal activity underwater.
Oh my God, there is this crazy movie called Deep House.
Okay.
And it's about a haunted house in a lake, and this couple goes scuba diving in the haunted house. I don't. It's so stupid, but I watched the whole thing. But you gotta watch. There's ghosts in this haunted house in underwater. You gotta watch it.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to check that one out.
House, yeah, it's hysterical.
Okay, Searchlight. It was founded in 1897 by G.F. Colton. He discovered gold. The town experienced a major boom but it wasn't until 1907. But the major boom was to a population of 1,500. During this boom, the town was home to a dozen saloons, telephone exchange, and 44 working mines at the time. The last mine closed in 1853, and there are several stories behind why Searchlight was called Searchlight. Some people say it was because the guy who founded gold said, "You'll only be able to find gold in this town with a searchlight," and other people say that the founder struck a match and the brand of matches was Searchlight matches. So there's several different stories behind why it was called Searchlight. Is it haunted? The cemetery you see here has had several activity. Light anomalies, shadow figures, footsteps, the street lights flicker on and off, and just an overall sense of dread. One story that I found interesting, and this goes along with the UFO claims, but also is the basis of several paranormal activity. But the Navy plane, the Lockhart P-3, was traveling from Nelson Air Force Base to California, and it had crashed. Official reports, and everybody on board had died. Official reports claim that lightning struck it, but conspiracy theorists believe that the plane was shot down by a UFO. So what really happened, no one knows. But of course, you have the official government record that it was lightning that knocked the plane down, but there was no storms in the area the night it happened. But those of us, like in Florida, you can have lightning for no reason. So
just heat lightning or static lightning,
yeah. Who knows? But people near the crash site, which was near the cemetery, have seen apparitions of Navy pilots walking around and then disappearing. Okay, Bonnie Springs Ranch. I'm so sad that this place was torn down. It completely demolished, and they're now building homes. It was on your way to Red Rock Canyon. It was a former stagecoach stop, but it was purchased and turned into a Wild West tourist attraction. You can see, I know Ghost Adventures visited here, and they did a lot of experiments. Several stories include the wax figures in the wax museum move, reach out to you, will grab you, turn their heads. Some people swear they blink. There's a merry-go-round outside that's believed to have a little girl play on it, and it'll spin. And one thing, and it's not that I give Ghost Adventures too much credit on some things, but this was one experiment that they did really well. They put those little pinwheels that spin with wind all around the merry-go-round to show that there was no wind when the merry-go-round started spinning.
That's that. I need to write that down.
So, and that was very interesting. That merry-go-round will spin on its own. Doors slam for no reason. Strange towns. They have a tunnel system, and strange occurrences occur there. People hear gunfire, and activity picks up at noon when they do their Wild West shootout at noon. When they did their Wild West, because they would do a reenactment at noon. So,
well, I'm going to make a prediction about the houses built on top of this land. I suggest that you print up a flyer and put in all their mailboxes once they're built.
Right.
They're going to have some problems.
Yeah. If we didn't move, I was probably going to look into buying a house there. Because it would have been a brand new house in a haunted area.
And on it. That's good.
That's perfect. Heather, what happened to the tunnels when it was torn down? I don't know. I think they just completely flattened the whole town. I know a lot of the artifacts and stuff went up for auction just before they shut it down. But yeah, we passed by there a lot going to Red Rock Canyon. And I think some of the spirits might have moved to Red Rock Canyon because Red Rock Canyon is really haunted.
Oh. Well, yeah. I hope that they know about where all these tunnels are because, if they don't fill them in or something, they're going to be having sinkholes and houses falling into holes like in England from all the mine shafts, coal mine shafts. All the houses are falling into these coal mine shafts after 80 to 100 years.
Hopefully they do it right. But you never know. Someone might want to try to cut corners. Oh, hey,
like,
we did do it in 2 hours.
Like Poltergeist, the house built on that cemetery.
Yep. No, Aurora, there's a Red Rock Canyon Conservation Area is in just outside of Las Vegas is where that's at. I removed slides and I didn't need to remove slides because I still have time. But anyway, I thank you guys for watching. I did base this presentation on my book. It is currently out by Arcadia Publishing. It's available worldwide, History Press, Amazon, Books A Million, and Barnes & Noble. You can also go to your local bookstore to purchase it. And then it is available locally in Vegas at the Clark County Museum, all Nevada Walgreens stores, and then Walmart and Target throughout Las Vegas and Tonopah, I believe, have purchased it as well, and they have it in stock there too. I think I have, since we still have time, I have a preview of Real Haunts Ghost Towns for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And this features all the towns we talked about.
They're there. I know they're there. They don't bother me, though. I don't bother them.
There was claim jumpings, a lot of murders, and just killings out here.
They were just told you better turn around and leave, or we're just going to shoot you.
We're all set, boys.
Yeah, it's real. It's a real place, and they do real things there.
It's a family activity, gets us all out as a family to bond together.
There was a lot of spiders in there.
One of the claim jumpers is killed. His ghost will haunt the mine.
The first non-gaming attraction on the Las Vegas Strip.
Crazy. Area 51.
Area 51. I worked out there for years.
Very cold.
So, and there you could see the town, ghost town owners, as well as sheriff. He was the first guy, and of course, we were joined by the Beard of Knowledge that is also seen on Pawn Stars a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Well, next time you go, the dude that worked at Area 51, I want you to take a big old bottle of whiskey and get him liquored up. And get him to talking.
I'll definitely work on it.
Yeah.
Desiree had asked, are these ghost towns open to the public so anyone can go? Most of them are. You just need to make sure you watch for no trespassing signs. You can walk down the main streets, but you just can't go in the buildings or into some of the mining areas without permission.
Are most of the little ghost towns that you can tour, do you pay like a fee to get in, like like an amusement type of thing? Or just, like,
the only one that charges is Nelson, but it's like a 12. You can still go and explore a little bit, but they charge a $12 fee if you want to go to further into the town for photos.
Oh, okay.
So like if you're walking around, technically you're not supposed to take photos of certain buildings unless you've paid the $12 photographic fee.
I mean, they got to make money somehow. I'm sure there's
Right.
like those places are expensive to maintain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I do know they charge like I think it's $32 a person to explore, investigate the mine that they give private tours for. So, yep. Okay. And I think anything else? I
don't see any more questions.
I know I'm working on a presentation for my next book, which has the mob aspect for the Las Vegas area.
I'll make sure all the people you're going to feature in that are dead.
Yeah. They were.
Okay, yeah. I don't want you disappearing.
No.
Find you out in the pet cemetery dump somewhere.
No. It's it's mostly talking about like the the former Tropicana Club and Club and all of that. Bugsy Siegel and
there's got to be some great stories of early Vegas.
Oh yeah. Yep, I found a lot, and from talking to a lot of people, it was a lot of interesting stories. I just wish I hadn't sent the book to the publisher before they started finding those bodies in Lake Mead,
Oh shoot, yeah.
because one of them was connected to a location I included in the book.
Darn.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do it on your website. Just do a little
Mm-hmm.
write up about it.
Yeah. Guess what we found? But okay, well, if there's no more questions, I guess we are done.
Let's talk about what's coming up.
Yep, I have right there. January 18th, Stephanie from your team will be joining us for a presentation on EVP analysis.
Yes, Stephanie is a member of Georgia Paranormal Investigations, my team, and she analyzes our EVPs on a spectrograph. You know, when we check the hertz and things and compare them to our voices to make sure that it's not one of us speaking. And she's going to teach us how to do that. And it's really fascinating. And when you give a client their report and you show them where we have sampled EVPs and tested them and shown that it's not us and it's not a radio and it's not a television signal. I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, it's science. So, yeah, Stephanie's going to give us a great presentation on that. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and then I know coming up, I did finish my hosting a paranormal event presentation. So we can share that in the near future. And then we have the Haunted Librarian coming back on February 15th for true crime hauntings.
And if there's anything that you guys are interested in, let us know. I know we had someone ask us about the veil. People talk about the thinning veil and the veil's thin at midnight to 3 a.m., blah, blah, blah. We're trying to figure out if there's enough information on what the veil is to do a presentation on. I don't, the veil is basically a door from our dimension to their dimension. I don't know if there's enough information out there for us to do a whole presentation on it, but we're trying to look into that because it was requested.
And I know someone, I think it was Jeff, requested photographic analysis, which I'm working on as well.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I had a real estate agent send me a picture. She'd taken a picture of a house that's being built, and above the house is a red blotch. And she's wanted to know, is this an orb? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, it's not an orb. No, but that's not what she wanted to hear, though. It's like, well, you asked me my opinion. And when you zoomed in on it, it was a big blotch. An orb is round. This was a sunspot.
And actually, what's funny is one of the best pieces of evidence that I found for a client investigation was on Zillow after she put her house up for sale.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you look in the the computer screen in the one bedroom, and there's a reflection on the computer screen of a man and a woman standing in front of the closet door.
Yeah.
And it was, they weren't clear enough to be human, but, and there was, of course, the realtor's not going to have two people standing in the room while she's taking photos.
I'd like to see that. Oh, yeah, he's Antone. I don't have my reading glasses on. Could you see his name? He's the one that asked about the presentation on the veil.
Okay. I put that one down on the list. I have portals on the list. Aurora, have you done a show on residual hauntings? We have in the past, but we can do it again.
Oh yeah, that was early on Ghost Dead. We did types of hauntings. We did intelligent and residual in one presentation. The poltergeist one we did was really good. If anyone wants to go back and look at that. And also we're trying to I saw a presentation through the Journey Within Spiritualist Church on Ouija boards. And it's a different perspective of Ouija board use, using it through as type of a mediumship tool for getting inspiration. And I mean, some people have written books channeled through a Ouija board, that type of thing. I'm trying to get this lady to do a presentation, but I think she's in England. So we're working on that because it's a really good presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Had to pay for it, but I'm going to see if she'll do it for us for free. We'll see.
Aurora said, how about different ways ghosts can charge themselves, such as through lightning?
Lightning, yes. With something that, we take as far as data collecting when we do an investigation, railroad tracks close to the location and noting when how often the train goes by. Because that kinetic energy can help feed things. We have a Jacob's ladder we've used before. We have a negative ion generator, which puts ozone into a location. We have done that before. We're also, I think, Derek on my team, who's the engineer, is doing a Weimhurst static generator. I think we're going to have it ready by the time we go to the Lodes house. Yeah, we like to experiment with these things and see if it makes any difference in the activity. I can tell you the building that had the train track like right next to it, the train went by like every hour or so. Mm-hmm. We had EVPs out the wazoo. So did that help? Possibly. But these are things we're trying to track and see if they have a bearing on what we do.
Yeah, who knows what? I mean, there's so much.
Yeah, we also, that's right, we have a Tesla coil. Stephanie has a Tesla coil. So we have all those.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'm working on getting some interesting guests. I know Larry, or my investigating sheriff friend, is going to come back. Reverend Sean Whittington, Lloyd Arbach said he would come back. And I was actually just reading an email from Dr. Barry Taff, and he wants to be on the show, but he can't commit to a date yet because his life's chaotic right now.
Yeah, okay.
So.
And I wonder if our friend Anthony Masulo.
I messaged him about 2 months ago saying if he had any new presentations or anything, and he said he hadn't.
Okay.
So, but I can try again.
I thought he had a new book, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
He did through History Press, the same company I went through.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, but it was something county. I can't, but it was a place out where he's at.
Yeah.
A local book.
But if you guys come up with things that you're interested in and would like us to try to put something together on, just shoot us a message through the Ghost Ed Messenger thing. Mm-hmm. Because, if you're like me, you'll think about it about 30 minutes after this ends.
or the minute I hit end.
Yeah, exactly. So any last questions? Oh, pendulum, yep. Michelle. I used to use a pendulum until I had my hand surgery, and I just don't. I like dowsing rods and I like pendulums. I just don't trust them when I use them because my right hand, after having surgery on it, is just different and it's weaker than my right one. My grip is weaker, and I think I could, manipulate it too much. So I don't use either one of them anymore. But I used to use a pendulum a lot. In fact, I've got it over here somewhere, sitting here. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Our first one of 2023. And I know we used to do a lot of just discussion panels. That's something we might want to do again too. Because they're always fun. Just have some other investigators on and just do discussion panels.
Yeah, we can come up with a topic and I can throw it out there, see if anyone wants to join in on it.
That could be fun. All righty. So I hope you like our new intro video for 2023 with our new music.
Out with the old and in with the new.
Right.
Okay, well, looks like, we are all caught up on comments, and thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.